Today we're at Evans Meat and Seafood Warehouse in Birmingham, Alabama, and we are looking for the perfect Easter ham. So let's ham it up. I'm Trace Barnett, and welcome to Garden Party. And I'm here with head butcher at Son of a Butcher, Chris Spear. Tell us what kind of ham we have here in front of us and some details in general about ham, because I feel like most people usually see ham very seasonal in the big coolers at your big box grocery stores in plastic. What's different about this ham?
Well, this is a bone-in smoked applewood New Ski spiral ham.
There's quite a few ham varieties that are out there.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about the different curing processes and smoking. So here in the South, you know, we all grew up with smokehouses back in the day. And, you know, there's just nothing better than a little smoke flavor. But tell me a little bit of detail about each different ham.
Yeah, with their smoked ham, you're going to have either you're going to do a dry brine or a wet brine. And that's just going to help the ham to not only collect flavor, but also to make sure that it stays nice and moist during the smoking process. Then you have, like, say, like a cured ham, like a country ham or a prosciutto, which you would take the hind leg, which is also known as like a green ham. You would cure it until it was cured all the way through, and there's all these little equations of how much it weighs, how much salt you use, and pink salt, and the nitrates that you would use, and the amount of time you would cure it. And then you would wash out that cure. You would hang it till it's dry, till it's dry enough to be able to slice it. And then you have your raw hams. A lot of people, what they do with the raw hams, they would just roast it just like just roasting a whole pig.
Gotcha. A whole pig. Now, nothing screams party like a whole pig when it shows up. So I feel like a lot of mistakes are made when people buy already pre-sliced ham in the store.
Yes.
And I think it all boils down to the fact that all the slices are already there, so they dry out super quick.
Absolutely.
So what's your biggest tips on when you purchase a ham that is already sliced and already pre-cooked?
Yeah.
How do you keep that moist, good flavor in there?
So slow and low would be the best way to do it. And the way you calculate how long you do it is that you'd weigh the ham. And so it would be 20 minutes per pound.
20 per pound.
That makes sense?
Gotcha.
And then what you would do is add, you would have it in a pan with a roasting rack. Underneath that roasting rack, you can pour in some water, pork stock, vegetable stock, chicken stock, whatever you choose to do, and then you'd wrap it with aluminum foil when you bake it off. As that liquid evaporates, it just goes into that ham and kind of helps to keep it moist.
Do you prefer like a roaster, or do you prefer the tinfoil method?
I prefer tinfoil, to be honest with you.
Just
I think
some steam's allowed to escape, so it just gets to that perfect happy medium.
Yeah. But you only need to heat up the ham to 140 degrees. A lot of times it just stays in there, then you temp it, it's like 200 degrees. Then your ham's gonna be very dry, a little rubbery.
And I think every kitchen should have a good meat thermometer.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's one of the necessities.
Yes.
So I'm smelling something real good floating around this kitchen.
We'll actually have a ham in the oven for us.
Well, let's get it out and roll that ham cam. Oh my gosh, look at that. So how did you prep this ham before you went in the oven? What's some of your big tips?
Well, what I did is I pulled it out 2 hours before I was going to cook it to help get the ham to room temperature before, and just speeds up the heating process. And then I put it into a 325-degree oven.
325, so pretty low.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you get a ham, especially cured or smoked, you're not necessarily throwing a bunch of seasonings on it, right, before you put it in.
I don't think it's necessary.
Because then you like have this salt lick of a ham that's just a lot.
Yeah.
So, but we're gonna glaze this ham. And glazing's like a whole important thing for hams.
Yes.
And I kind of feel like it's the spray tan of hams, if you know what I mean. Like every
is.
ham just looks better with it.
Yeah, it does.
So tell us about your glaze.
So basically how I make my glazes, I like my glazes a little bit more on the savory side. So basically what I do is I just melt butter, and then I mince some fresh thyme, and then I add the fresh thyme to the butter, let that butter collect that thyme flavor, and then I add honey, brown sugar, and Dijon.
So you've got us a glaze made up back here on the stovetop.
Yep.
Let's transfer this over and let's talk glazing.
Great. So what I usually do is I'll turn the oven 50 degrees higher than what I cooked it at.
Okay, and so what point do you feel like it's the perfect time to glaze the ham? Is this like toward the last 20 minutes? Is it midway? What's the
Yeah, about the last 20. So you want to heat your ham up to about 140, and then when it hits about 135 degrees, that's when I start the glazing process.
Look how beautiful that is.
Yeah, what I like to do is kind of brush it. I suggest always using a brush that has like the actual hairs on it. I don't understand the plastic brushes.
Don't make a whole lot of sense.
They
does it?
don't.
So you're getting this in every nook and cranny, right?
Yes.
So there's no part of this ham unturned with glaze.
Ideally.
I know a lot of cooks, especially home cooks, they tend to like glaze the ham and then the ham kind of chars, it burns a little bit. What's your tips on keeping our glaze from turning to charcoal?
My biggest tip is just pay attention to the ham.
Paying attention.
Yeah. So if sometimes people's ovens at home, they don't heat evenly. So rotating your ham during the cooking process will help where one side gets dark and one side doesn't, right? But just really paying attention to what you're doing.
Beautiful. Should we pop it back in and let it get nice and crispy done?
Yes.
Let me get the oven for you here.
I appreciate that. So basically what I do is I put my first layer of glaze on, I'll put it in the oven, wait 5 minutes, pull it back out, another glaze, 5 minutes back in the oven, and then I'll do it a third time.
So that's what really gives it that good caramelization, that really good stickiness that you want with a ham.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at that showstopper. The smell of it.
After we do the final glaze, what I usually do is I'll do like a foil tent. And so we'll let it kind of rest for about 20 to 30 minutes, and to kind of let like everything just kind of, all the flavors kind of meld together as it cools down a little bit, which would be great that it's cooler, so when you're touching it to cut it, it's not burning yourself.
I also think a lot of home cooks are like, I needed to get this piping hot piece of meat out, and it's just like so much flavor's lost while it's just so hot.
Yeah. And so you just do it like a really loose kind of cover.
All right, our 20 minutes have passed. Let me do the honors. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Look at the glaze too. So in that amount of time, the glaze has kind of really made itself at home on top of our ham.
Absolutely.
All right, I can't wait any longer. It's time to carve this meat up, the ham of all hams.
Great.
And I think this is the problem with a lot of like people at home, myself included. It's like, what's the proper way to carve this ham up and still keep it as a work of art?
Sure.
And I think that goes to say with any kind of big holiday meat, The turkey's intimidating, the ham's intimidating. All right, we're gloved up. That means stuff's getting really serious. Before we dive into this one's is this half sliced?
Yes.
And then half whole?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So what you can do with this, today we are going to slice this top part, but a lot of times people will cut the top part off, and that'll be for leftovers that you pass out to your family for the next day, and then the bottom part that we just slice is what's for dinner.
Gotcha. Show us those professional carving skills.
So what you want to do is that you want the bone of the ham away from you.
Okay.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to slice towards the bone. And then once we get our slices, all we're going to do is cut it down following the bone, and then it's all sliced.
Oh my God, look at the juices coming out.
We're just going to just kind of slice it. It depends, the thickness is up to you.
Is there an optimal thickness you think? Like,
I think about like a ½ inch to a quarter inch to a ½ inch is pretty good. And so all I'm doing is just kind of slicing and cutting right to that bone.
that's the kind of piece of ham you want right there with like mac and cheese, toasted later on a sandwich.
And so at this point, all of it's pretty much sliced. All we're going to do is we're going to follow the bone all the way down that angle.
And that's the
So now
perfect.
that
This is
we're-
like the ham of dreams.
Yeah, now that we're sliced.
Look at all that glaze that's gone into that. Oh my gosh. Now, when you plate yours, would you reserve any of the drippings or glaze like from the bottom of the pan and
Oh yeah,
toss on that?
that would never hurt.
So we've plated the pork here, but now it's the most important part.
Yes.
Let me serve you up some. Is there one piece you're eyeing over here?
A nice glazed piece.
Nice glazed piece.
Yes.
How's that one?
That one's great.
That looks beautiful. I could just forego the fork. The best ham. So moist, so flavorful. And I get every bit of that component of the glaze with the smoke too. So for our viewers who don't know Evans Meats, will you tell me a little bit about the organization and its history here in Birmingham?
Absolutely. So Evans Meats was started by Butch Evans in 1998. And you know, the focus is always just trying to bring the best product to the surrounding restaurants as possible. And that reigns true today as well.
I feel like a lot of people are a little intimidated of butcher shops.
Sure.
You know, the whole concept of like meat cuts and then like asking for that specific cut is, you know, just not your everyday thing. So when I'm like, if I'm a viewer, I'm going into the butcher shop, how would I go in and order the perfect ham?
Well, in our butcher shop in particular, we about 4 weeks out before a holiday, we set up a special menu where the customer can order online. They can basically set their pickup date for it. They come in, we have their order ready, and they just pay and go.
Just magically appears?
Yeah.
So say I come in and order ham in advance.
Okay.
What's the best way to store a ham until I'm ready to cook it?
Well, okay, so the hams that we sell in particular are already vacuum sealed.
Okay.
So they last a very long time in your refrigerator. If you bought a ham from us, it would probably be fine for about 3 weeks before you cook it.
Oh, that's a lot of like relaxed wait time. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Beat the rush a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're done hamming it up. It's time for me to get this masterpiece to my Easter table. Thanks so much for having us today and talking ham.
Thanks for thinking of us.
All right, I'm here for some meat, specifically an Easter ham. What did I say? Oh my God, sorry.
That's fine. Well, it just so happens I have a ham in the oven.
A little more enthusiasm. Let's get excited about it.
It just so happens I have a hot, juicy ham in the oven. No?
That's beautiful ham right there.
Right?
Gorgeous. Where's the sides? I can already tell it's like hot and juicy. 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 And there's definitely something else in this kitchen hogging all the spotlight, and it's this ham.
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 Ham. It is so beautiful. It's like the ham of our dreams.